2 years had passed since the council meeting, and Dr. Han B was tired. She wiped sweat from her face as she climbed out of the deep hole she had been digging all morning. The sun of Kepler 186f was hot and red, nothing like Earth's yellow sun. She missed home. Around her, the dig site was busy with activity. Humans with shovels and brushes worked carefully to uncover ancient ruins. Above them, Altaran supervisors watched from floating platforms, making notes on electronic pads. The supervisors never came down to help with the actual work. That was for humans, Dr. Han B called a voice. She turned to see her assistant, Jong Min, running toward her. He was young and excited about everything they found. Look at this. He held out a piece of stone covered in strange writing. Han B took it and studied the marks carefully. She had learned to read several alien languages, but this was different. Older. Where did you find this? She asked. In the deep tunnel, section 7. There's a whole wall covered with these symbols. Han B felt her heart beat faster. This could be important. Very important. She followed Young Min to the tunnel. It was dark and cool underground. Their lights showed walls covered in the strange writing. Han B ran her fingers over the symbols. They were carved deep into the rock, made to last forever. Can you read it? Young Min asked. Han B was quiet for a long time, studying the writing. Slowly, pieces began to make sense. It's a warning, she said finally. A warning about what? Before Han B could answer, a shadow fell across the tunnel entrance. Director Sekthul, the Altaran in charge of the dig, was coming down. He moved awkwardly in the narrow tunnel, his large body scraping the walls. What are you doing down here? He demanded. You should be working on the surface sites. We found something important, Han B said. These writings are older than anything we've seen before. Sekthul looked at the wall and shrugged. Old writing, so what? We're looking for technology, not history lessons. But this could tell us about the species that lived here. They might have... Dr. Han B, Sekthul interrupted. You are here to dig. I am here to think. That is how it works. Han B bit back her anger. She had 3 degrees and 20 years of experience, but to the Altarans she was just another human worker. That night she stayed in the tunnel after everyone else left. Using her own equipment, she took pictures of all the writing. By morning, she had translated enough to understand what she was reading. The warning was clear. Beware the ones who come with gifts. They offer protection but bring chains. They smile while they sharpen their knives. We trusted them and now we are dust. Han B's hands shook as she read. This wasn't just ancient history. This was a message from another species that had been in the same position as humans. Far away on the mining world of Kepler 442b, Cho Wan was having his own problems. He stood at the edge of a massive pit where human workers dug for crystals that powered alien technology. The work was dangerous and hard, but humans were good at it. They were small enough to get into tight spaces and tough enough to work in harsh conditions. Foreman Cho called one of his workers. The new machine isn't working right. Cho Wan climbed down into the pit to look. The alien mining machine was broken again. These machines broke down every few days because they weren't designed for the rough conditions on this world. Same problem as always, Cho Wan muttered. He opened the machine's control panel and started to fix it. The alien design was good, but it was also wasteful. Cho Wan had learned to make simple changes that made the machines work better. Why don't you just report it to the supervisors? Asked the worker. Cho Wan looked up at the floating platforms where the Zephyrian overseers watched the work. Because then we'd wait 3 days for them to send a repair team, and the repair team would just replace the whole unit instead of fixing the problem. In 2 hours, Cho Wan had the machine working again, but now it worked 3 times faster than before. He had made small changes to the power system and the cutting tools. The alien designers had never thought of these improvements. That's amazing, said the worker. You should tell the supervisors. No, Cho Wan said firmly. Let them think their machine just started working better on its own. He had learned not to show off human cleverness. The few times he had suggested improvements, the supervisors had taken credit for his ideas. Or they had ignored him completely. Above them, Merchant Prince Zilnara watched the human workers through electronic eyes. She didn't care about their improvements to the machines. She cared about profits, and humans were very profitable. They worked harder than most species, complained less, and cost almost nothing to feed and house. The humans are exceeding production targets again, her assistant reported. Good, Zilnara said. Are they still asking for better safety equipment? Yes, but we've denied the requests. Too expensive, Zilnara nodded. Humans were replaceable. If some died in mining accidents, Earth would send more. What she didn't know was that humans were keeping their own records. Every accident, every unsafe condition, every time their requests were ignored. Lieutenant Yoon Dae of Earth's Defense Force was collecting all of this information. Yoon Dae sat in a small office in Earth's capital, reading reports that came in from human colonies all over the galaxy. The pattern was always the same. Humans were being used as cheap labor in dangerous jobs. They were being placed in strategic locations that could be easily controlled, and their improvements to alien technology were being stolen or ignored. "Sir," said his assistant, bringing in another stack of reports. "These just came in from the outer colonies." Yoon Dae opened the first report and frowned. It was from a human colony near the border between the Altaran hegemony and the Free Worlds Coalition. The humans there had been told they were farming colonists, but the report showed they were actually building military supply bases. The second report was worse. Humans on a research station had discovered they were actually working on weapons designed to control other species. Yoon Dae stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the normal life of Earth. People going to work, children playing, everyone believing that humanity had found its place among the stars. They had no idea they were being prepared for slavery. Back on the dig site, Dr. Han B had made another discovery. Deep in the ruins, she had found a hidden chamber. Inside were more warnings, but also something else: technical diagrams. The ancient species had been studying their conquerors. They had learned the weaknesses of the advanced aliens, and they had built weapons to exploit those weaknesses. "Jongmin," she whispered, "look at this." The diagrams showed simple devices that could disrupt alien shields, weapons that used basic physics instead of complex energy systems. The ancient species had learned that sometimes the simplest solutions were the best. "This is incredible," Jongmin said. "But why didn't it work? Why are they gone?" Hanbi found the answer on the last wall of the chamber. They discovered these secrets too late. By the time they understood, too many of their people were already under alien control. She took pictures of everything, then sealed the chamber again. This knowledge was too dangerous to leave in the open. That night, she tried to send a message to Earth, but her communication was blocked. All human communications from the dig site went through Altaran systems first. "Having trouble with your message?" Director Sekthul appeared behind her. "Just trying to send my family a letter," Hanbi lied. "I'm afraid personal communications are limited. We can't have our workers distracted by home." Hanbi nodded and went to her sleeping quarters, but she didn't sleep. Instead, she worked on a plan to get her information to Earth. On Kepler 442b, Cho-Wan was making his own discoveries. Late one night, when the supervisors were asleep, he sneaked into the main computer system. What he found there made his blood turn cold. The crystals they were mining weren't just for power systems. They were for weapons. Weapons designed to control the minds of other species. And according to the computer files, the first target was Earth. Cho-Wan copied the files to a hidden storage device. Then he went to find the other human workers. "We need to get word to Earth," he told them. "This whole operation is a trap." "How?" asked one of the workers. "All our communications go through Zephyrian systems." Cho-Wan thought for a moment. Then he smiled grimly. "The old way. We break the rules." The next day, when a supply ship arrived from Earth, Cho-Wan was ready. He had hidden his storage device in a food container that was being sent back empty. The Zephyrians never bothered to check garbage, but someone was watching. As the supply ship prepared to leave, Zephyrian security forces surrounded it. "There has been a security breach," announced the supervisor. "All human communications are now forbidden. Any human caught trying to send messages off-world will be severely punished." Cho-Wan watched as his hidden message was discovered and destroyed. Around him, other human workers were being arrested. The Zephyrians had been watching them all along. On Earth, President Nam Q sat in his office and read the few reports that were still getting through. The pattern was clear now. Humans were being positioned all over the galaxy in jobs that looked beneficial, but were actually preparing for their enslavement. "Sir," said his aide, "we're getting reports that human workers in several colonies have gone missing." "Missing how?" "They were arrested for security violations." Captain Lee Jun stood on the bridge of the New Seoul and watched the massive space station grow larger on the screen. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. This was the moment Earth had been waiting for. After hundreds of years of looking at the stars and wondering, humans were finally going to meet their neighbors. The space station was huge. Li Jun had seen the pictures, but seeing it with his own eyes was different. It was like a metal city floating in space with lights that sparkled like diamonds. Ships from dozens of different worlds were docked there. Some looked like silver fish, others like giant crystals, and some had shapes that hurt to look at. "Captain," said Park Min from his station. "We're getting a signal from the station. They want us to dock at Bay 94. Li Jun nodded. Park Min was the best engineer on the ship, maybe the best engineer on Earth. He had worked for months to make sure their ship could talk to alien computers. "Take us in, Park Min." Behind them, Ambassador Kim Sol was checking her notes one more time. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but Li Jun knew she was tougher than she looked. She had learned 6 alien languages and studied their customs for 2 years. If anyone could make friends with the aliens, it was her. "Are you ready, Ambassador?" Li Jun asked. Kim Sol smiled, but her eyes were worried. As ready as anyone can be for something like this. The new soul moved slowly toward the docking bay. Through the windows, Li Jun could see alien workers watching them. Some pointed at their ship and seemed to be talking to each other. He wondered what they were saying. The docking was smooth. Park Min had done his job well. Soon they were walking through a tube that connected their ship to the station. The air smelled different here, like metal and something sweet that Li Jun couldn't name. An alien was waiting for them. It was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. Its head was bigger than a human head, and it had 3 eyes that blinked at different times. "Welcome, humans," it said in perfect English. "I am Guide Veltar. I will take you to the council chamber." They followed the alien through long hallways filled with beings that Li Jun had only dreamed about. There were creatures that looked like walking trees, others that seemed to be made of living metal, and some that floated in the air without wings. Many of them stopped to stare at the humans. "They seem very interested in us," Kim Sol said quietly. "Yes," said Veltar. "Humans are unusual." The way it said the word made Li Jun feel cold inside. The council chamber was enormous. It was shaped like a bowl, with seats going up in circles. In the center was a platform where the humans would stand. Already hundreds of aliens filled the seats. The noise they made sounded like wind through a forest. At the highest seat sat the most important aliens. Li Jun recognized them from his studies. There was Vextar of the Alteran hegemony, the strongest military power in the galaxy. He was huge and covered in red scales with teeth that could bite through metal. Next to him sat Kulvas, the chairman of the council. He looked like a giant insect with wings that never stopped moving. "Beings of the council," Kulvas said, and his voice filled the chamber. "Today we meet the newest species to reach the stars. Please welcome the humans from the planet Earth." Kim Sol walked to the center of the platform. She stood straight and proud, even though Li Jun could see her hand shaking a little. "Thank you for welcoming us," she said. "Earth is happy to meet the great civilizations of the galaxy. We come in peace, hoping to learn and to share what we know." "And what do you know?" asked a voice from the crowd. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Kim Sol didn't let the laughter upset her. She began to tell them about Earth. She talked about human art and music, about their science and technology. She showed them pictures of Earth cities and oceans. "We have developed nuclear fusion for power," she said. "Our rockets can reach any planet in our solar system. We have computers that can think and learn." More laughter filled the chamber. This time it was louder. Vextar stood up. His huge form cast a shadow over the platform. "Nuclear fusion?" he said, and his voice was full of mocking. "We stopped using that 10,000 years ago. And rockets? Chemical rockets? Our weapons are projectile-based," Kim Sol continued, trying to sound confident. "We have explosives that can level mountains." The laughter became so loud that Li Jun wanted to cover his ears. Even the guide Veltar was making a sound that might have been alien laughter. "Projectile weapons," Vextar roared. "They throw rocks at each other. And they call this advanced." Kulvas raised one of his claws for silence. "Tell us, human. How long did it take your species to reach the stars?" Kim Sol's face went red. "About 10,000 years from our first civilizations." The chamber erupted. Aliens were laughing so hard that some fell out of their seats. Others were making sounds that hurt human ears. 10,000 years, shouted someone from the crowd. "The Zephyrians did it in 2000. The Alterans in 3000. Most species take 3,000 to 4,000 years," said Kulvas. 10,000 years makes you the slowest species we have ever encountered. Vextar walked down to the platform. He was so big that Kim Sol looked like a child next to him. Humans, he said, and his voice was not kind. You are clearly too primitive for full membership in this council, but we are not without mercy. He smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. The Altaran hegemony offers Earth protection. You can be our protectorate. We will defend you from dangers, and in return you can work for us. You seem strong enough for manual labor. And humans are small, said another voice. They could work in tight spaces where larger species cannot go. They could be entertaining too, said a third voice. Their primitive ways might amuse more advanced species. Kim Sol's face was white now, but she kept her voice steady. Earth thanks the Council for its generous offers, but we would prefer to earn our place as equals. The laughter started again. Equals, Vextar said. You have chemical rockets and stone-throwing weapons. We have ships that can destroy stars and weapons that bend space itself. How could you ever be our equals? A small alien with gray skin stood up. Li Jun recognized her as Merchant Prince Zilnara from the Zephyrian Trade Consortium. Perhaps humans could be useful in other ways, she said, her voice smooth as oil. Earth has many resources, and humans seem adaptable. They could work in our mining colonies. Yes, said Kulvas. The Council agrees. Earth will be granted provisional observer status. You may watch our meetings, but you cannot vote. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when you have advanced enough, we will consider full membership. Kim Sol bowed her head. Earth accepts the Council's decision. But Li Jun saw something in her eyes that the aliens missed. It wasn't defeat. It was anger. The meeting was over. The aliens filed out, still laughing and talking about the primitive humans. Some pointed at them and made jokes in languages the humans couldn't understand. As they walked back to their ship, Guide Veltar shook his head. I am sorry, he said, but you must understand humans are very behind. It would be dangerous to give you full membership too quickly. Back on the New Sol, Li Jun found Park Min in the engine room. The engineer was working on something, his hands moving fast over alien computer parts. What are you doing? Li Jun asked. Park Min looked up. His eyes were bright with excitement. Captain, I've been studying their computers while we were docked. Their technology is amazing, but it's also predictable. What do you mean? They've been using the same basic designs for thousands of years. They improve them, make them faster and stronger, but they don't really change them. Park Min smiled. Humans think differently. We see problems from new angles. Li Jun felt a spark of hope. Are you saying we might be able to catch up? I'm saying we might be able to do more than catch up, Park Min said. Later that night, as the New Sol flew back toward Earth, Li Jun stood in his cabin and looked out at the stars. Ambassador Kim Sol knocked on his door. Come in, he said. She sat down in a chair and was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. They think we're stupid. Yes, Li Jun said, they think we're weak. Yes, they're going to try to control us, use us like slaves. Li Jun turned to look at her. Probably. Kim Sol was quiet again. Then she smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. They don't know humans very well, do they? No, Li Jun said. They don't. 3 days later, the New Sol reached Earth. The news of what happened spread quickly. Some people were angry, others were sad. But many people, especially the scientists and engineers, had a different reaction. They got to work. Dr. Hanbi, who worked at the Seoul Space Research Center, stayed up all night reading the reports from the council meeting. The next morning, she called her team together. They laughed at our weapons, she said, but I want to know something. If their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, what happens when you shoot them with a simple bullet? Her team looked at each other. Then they smiled. All over Earth, people were asking the same kinds of questions. In military bases, in research labs, in universities, humans were studying the aliens' weaknesses. They had been laughed at, looked down upon, treated like children, but humans had survived ice ages and plagues, wars and disasters. They had climbed out of caves and built rockets to the stars, and they had learned something important along the way. The news reached Earth on a cold morning in Seoul. President Nam Kyu sat in his office and watched the reports come in from the mining colonies. 43 humans dead in what the Zephyrians called an unfortunate accident. The mining equipment had exploded when the human workers tried to sabotage it. Nam Kyu knew better. Cho Wan and his workers hadn't been sabotaging anything. They had been trying to warn Earth about what was really happening in the colonies. "Sir," said his aide, entering the room with more reports. "We're getting similar stories from 12 other colonies. Always the same pattern. Humans discover something they shouldn't, then there's an accident." Nam Q stood and walked to the window. Outside, people were going about their normal lives. They didn't know that their fellow humans were dying in alien mines and work camps across the galaxy. They didn't know that Earth was being slowly surrounded by enemies who smiled and called themselves friends. "Has Dr. Han B reported in yet?" Nam Q asked. "No, sir. Her last message was 3 days ago. The Alterans say she's been transferred to a special project, but they won't say where." Nam Q closed his eyes. Dr. Han B was one of their best people. If she was missing, it meant she had found something important. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said. General Park High entered, followed by a young woman Nam Q didn't recognize. The woman was thin and tired-looking, with dirt still under her fingernails. "Mr. President," General Park High said, "this is Agent Osu. She has something you need to hear." Osu stepped forward. For 3 years, she had worked as a maintenance worker on Alteran ships. The aliens never paid attention to the humans who cleaned their ships and fixed their equipment. They talked freely in front of her as if she wasn't there. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite her obvious exhaustion, "I have information about alien military plans. They're not just using us for labor. They're preparing to take control of Earth." She placed a small device on Nam Q's desk. This contains 3 years of recorded conversations, technical specifications, and battle plans. The Alterans are planning to demand Earth's complete surrender within the next 6 months. Nam Q picked up the device. "What happens if we refuse?" "They'll destroy every human colony in space, then blockade Earth until we surrender from starvation." The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Nam Q spoke. "General Park High, is Project Prometheus ready?" "As ready as it can be with the resources we have." "But sir, we only have 200 ships. The Alterans have 50,000. "Numbers don't tell the whole story," Nam Q said. "Agent Osu, what did you learn about their technology?" Osu smiled grimly. "They're very advanced, but they're also very predictable. They've been using the same basic designs for thousands of years. Their ships are built for fighting other species that follow the same rules they do." "What rules?" "Honor, fair fighting, warning your enemy before you attack. All the things that make war civilized." Nam Q understood. "And humans don't follow those rules." "Humans make their own rules," Osu said. "That's what the aliens don't understand about us." In a secret laboratory beneath the mountains outside Seoul, engineer Baek Jun was putting the finishing touches on humanity's first real weapon against the galaxy. It didn't look like much, just a small device that could fit in someone's pocket, but appearances could be deceiving. "Is it ready?" asked Dr. Lim Su, his partner on the project. Baek Jun nodded. "Ready for testing. If this works, we'll be able to turn the aliens' own technology against them." The device was based on something simple, a computer virus. But not just any virus. This one was designed specifically for alien computer systems. Humans had spent years studying how these systems worked, and they had found something interesting. All alien technology was connected. Ships, weapons, shields, life support, everything ran on the same basic network. "The aliens trust their computers completely," Baek Jun explained to the testing team. "They've never had to deal with hackers or viruses. Their systems have no protection against this kind of attack." Dr. Lim Su activated the device. On the screens around them, they watched as the virus spread through a captured alien computer system. Within minutes, the entire network was down. "It works," she said, smiling for the first time in months. It actually works, but Baek Jun was already thinking ahead. "This is just the beginning. We need thousands of these devices, and we need to get them onto alien ships without them knowing." That was where Agent Osu came in. She knew the maintenance schedules of every major Alteran ship. She knew which humans had access to alien systems, and she knew how to organize them. "We have people on 300 alien ships," she told the assembled group. "Maintenance workers, food service, cleaning crews. The aliens don't see us as threats, so they don't watch us closely." General Park High studied the plans. "How long do we have?" "The Alterans are planning to send their ultimatum to Earth in 2 months," Osu said. "They expect us to surrender immediately. When we don't, they'll attack. Then we have 2 months to get ready," Nam Q said. Across the galaxy, humans began to prepare for war, but it wasn't the kind of preparation their enemies expected. On mining worlds and research stations, human workers quietly gathered information about alien defenses. They memorized guard schedules and security codes. They studied the layout of every important building and the location of every weapon. On alien ships, human maintenance crews began making small changes to computer systems. Nothing obvious, just tiny modifications that would allow human viruses to spread faster when the time came. In Earth's shipyards, engineers worked around the clock to build ships that looked weak but hid deadly surprises. The aliens expected humans to build bigger versions of their chemical rockets. Instead, humans built ships that could hide from alien sensors and strike without warning. Commander Lee Young led the development of Earth's first stealth fighters. The ships were small and fast, designed to look like space debris on alien scanners. "The key is not to fight them head-on," he explained to his pilots. "We can't match their firepower, so we have to be smarter. We hit them when they're not expecting it, then disappear before they can respond." Captain Song Min was developing even more radical tactics. Her Ghost Squadron would use captured alien ships to infiltrate enemy formations. "We'll look like their own ships on their scanners," she said. "By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late." But the most important work was happening in secret facilities around Earth. Dr. Lim Su's team was mass-producing computer viruses tailored to different alien systems. Each virus was designed to spread through alien networks and shut down their most important systems at exactly the right moment. Meanwhile, teams of human hackers studied alien communication networks. They learned how to intercept messages, decode battle plans, and even send false orders to enemy ships. The aliens have been connected to each other for so long that they've forgotten how to fight without their networks, explained hacker team leader Park Jae. "When we take those networks down, they'll be blind and deaf." Not everyone was preparing for war. Ambassador Kim Sol was working on a different kind of preparation, building alliances. "There are other species that are tired of being controlled by the great powers," she told President Nam Kyu. "If we can convince them to join us, we won't be fighting alone." The Kandorian Mining Guild had been exploited by the Zephyrians for centuries. The Free Worlds Coalition was tired of being bullied by the Alterans. Even some species within the great powers were unhappy with how things were run. "The galaxy is like a powder keg," Kim Sol reported. "It just needs someone to light the fuse." As the weeks passed, more disturbing news reached Earth. Human colonies were being relocated to more secure facilities. Human communications were being cut off completely. Even families of humans working in space were being moved to protective custody. The message was clear. Earth would surrender, or every human outside the solar system would disappear. Dr. Han Bi had indeed disappeared, but she wasn't dead. She was being held in an Alteran prison ship, along with dozens of other humans who had learned too much. But even in prison, she was working. Using improvised tools, she had managed to decode the prison ship's computer system. What she found there made her sick with fear and anger. The aliens weren't just planning to control humanity. They were planning to change them. Genetic modification, brain implants, chemical treatments that would make humans docile and obedient. They wanted to turn the human race into the perfect slave species. But Han Bi also found something else in the computer files: the location of every human prisoner, every secret facility, every hidden weapon the aliens were building to use against Earth. Using the prison ship's own communication system, she began to send coded messages to Earth. The aliens were monitoring all official channels, but they weren't watching the garbage disposal system. Han Bi hid her messages in the waste data that was automatically transmitted to processing stations. On Earth, President Nam Kyu received Han Bi's intelligence just as the alien ultimatum arrived. Admiral Kexmore of the Alteran hegemony appeared on every screen on Earth, his scaled face filled with arrogant confidence. "People of Earth," he said, his voice echoing in every city, "your time as an independent species is over." Admiral Kexmore stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the primitive human fleet with amusement. 5,000 Altaran warships against 200 human vessels. It would barely count as a warm-up exercise. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human ships are taking defensive positions around their planet. They appear to be using simple chemical propulsion and primitive weapons." Kexmore laughed, his scaled face splitting into a toothy grin. "Chemical propulsion? I haven't seen that in 1,000 years. This will be over in minutes. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Human vessels, this is Admiral Kexmore of the Alteran hegemony. You are completely outmatched. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. On Earth's flagship, Admiral Shin Ray heard the message and smiled coldly. All human vessels, this is Admiral Shin Ray. Remember the plan. Let them come to us. The Alteran fleet moved forward in perfect formation. They had used the same battle tactics for thousands of years because they worked. Overwhelming firepower, advanced shields, superior speed. No species had ever been able to stand against them. Beginning attack run, reported Kexmore's tactical officer. Targeting human command ship with plasma cannons. The first volley of plasma fire lit up space like green lightning. The beam struck the human flagship's shields and bounced off harmlessly. What?
Kexmore stared at his screens.
That's impossible. Their shields shouldn't be able to stop our weapons. Sir, our sensors show the human shields are based on our own technology, but they've been modified somehow. Kexmore frowned. How had the primitive humans improved on Alteran technology? The answer came from Commander Li Young, piloting one of Earth's stealth fighters. For months, human engineers had studied alien shield technology. They discovered that alien shields were designed to stop energy weapons, but they were vulnerable to simple kinetic attacks. Ghost Leader to all fighters, Li Young broadcast on a frequency the aliens couldn't detect. Begin attack run Alpha. Target their shield generators with kinetic missiles. The stealth fighters were almost invisible to alien sensors. They looked like space debris or asteroids. By the time the Alterans realized they were under attack, human missiles were already striking their ships. But these weren't normal missiles. They were simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. No complex guidance systems, no energy signatures, just mass moving very fast. The alien shields designed for thousands of years to stop energy weapons were useless against them. Direct hit on enemy destroyer, reported one of Li Young's pilots. Their shields didn't even slow the missile down. Across the Alteran formation, ships began taking damage from weapons they couldn't understand. How were primitive kinetic weapons getting through their advanced shields? Sir, Kexmore's tactical officer was panicking. We're taking heavy damage from unknown weapons. Our shields are ineffective. Impossible, Kexmore roared. Increase power to shields. That's not helping, sir. These weapons aren't energy-based. They're physical projectiles. For the first time in his long military career, Kexmore felt confusion. Physical projectiles? Who fought with physical projectiles? The answer came from Captain Song Min and her Ghost Squadron. They had been hiding among the Alteran fleet, using captured alien ships and forged identification codes. To Alteran sensors, they looked like friendly vessels. Ghost Squadron. Begin Operation Trojan Horse, Song Min broadcast to her pilots. 20 ships that the Alterans thought were their own suddenly opened fire from inside their formation. The aliens were so surprised that several seconds passed before they could react. We're being attacked by our own ships, someone screamed over the Alteran communication network. How is that possible? Check IF codes. Who are these vessels? But by then, Song Min's squadron had done its damage and disappeared into the confusion of battle. The Alterans began firing on their own ships, not sure which ones were real and which ones were human infiltrators. On Earth, Dr. Lim Su activated the next phase of the human plan. All across the galaxy, the computer viruses that human workers had been secretly installing began to activate. The first sign of trouble came when Alteran ships began losing communication with each other. Then their targeting systems started failing. Navigation computers shut down. Weapon systems began firing randomly or not at all. Sir, Kexmore's communication officer reported, his voice filled with panic. We're losing contact with half the fleet. Something is wrong with our computer networks. Fix it, Kexmore ordered. We can't, sir. Whatever this is, it's spreading through our systems faster than we can contain it. The virus had been designed specifically for Alteran technology. It exploited weaknesses in their computer code that they didn't even know existed, because all their systems were connected. Once the virus got into one ship, it could spread to every other ship in the fleet. Within minutes, the mighty Alteran fleet was reduced to scattered groups of ships with failing systems, fighting an enemy they couldn't see using weapons they didn't understand. But the humans weren't done yet. On mining worlds across the galaxy, human workers who had been treated like slaves for 2 years finally showed what they were really capable of. Cho-1 had died trying to warn Earth, but his sacrifice had not been in vain. On Kepler 442b, human workers led by Foreman Parkdal took control of the mining facilities. They had been watching their alien overseers for months, learning the security codes and guard schedules. When the signal came from Earth, they were ready. "Remember," Parkdal told his team, "we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who died in these mines." They moved swiftly through the facility, using their knowledge of the tunnels and equipment to outmaneuver the Zephyrian guards. The aliens had grown comfortable with controlling humans through fear and superior technology. They weren't prepared for organized resistance. The mining crystals that powered alien weapons were now in human hands. Without these crystals, many alien ships became helpless. Dr. Han B, still trapped on the Altaran prison ship, watched the battle unfold on the security monitors. The aliens were running around in panic, their systems failing one by one. "Jong Min," she whispered to her fellow prisoner, "it's time." They had been secretly working to take control of the prison ship's systems. The Altarans never suspected that their human prisoners were actually highly skilled professionals. They saw only primitive slaves. Han B activated the device she had built from scavenged parts. The prison ship's computer system, already weakened by the spreading virus, was easy to hack. "Attention all human prisoners," she broadcast over the ship's communication system. "This is Dr. Han B. We are taking control of this vessel. Prepare for liberation." Prison ships across the galaxy began reporting the same impossible situation. Their human cargo was taking over. Back in the main battle, Admiral Kexmore was beginning to understand the scope of the disaster. This wasn't just a battle, it was a carefully planned operation that had been months in the making. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human uprisings on 17 mining worlds, 12 prison ships captured, supply lines cut." "How is this possible?" Kexmore demanded. "They're primitives. They have no organization, no technology, no—" His words were cut off as another wave of human missiles struck his flagship. The ship shuddered as its shields failed completely. On the human flagship, Admiral Shinrei watched the battle with grim satisfaction. The plan was working better than they had hoped. But she knew this was just the beginning. "All ships begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Show them what human ingenuity really looks like." Phase 2 was even more devastating than Phase 1. Human ships began using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They used asteroids as shields, hid behind planets, and attacked from angles that honorable species would never consider. Commander Li Young's fighters began ramming attacks on alien ships. The aliens couldn't believe it. Who was crazy enough to crash their own ships into the enemy? "Humans, apparently," Li Young said into his radio as he guided his damaged fighter toward an Altaran cruiser. "Tell my family I died free." The explosion took out the cruiser's entire port side. Captain Song Min's Ghost Squadron had perfected the art of confusion. They would appear as friendly ships on alien sensors, get close to enemy formations, then suddenly reveal their true identity and strike. "The humans fight without honor," one Altaran captain broadcast in desperation. "They use deception and suicide attacks. This is not warfare." But for humans, this was exactly what warfare meant. Humans had learned to fight by battling each other for thousands of years. They knew that in war the only rule was victory. The most shocking moment came when human ships began boarding alien vessels. The aliens couldn't understand why anyone would want to capture enemy ships when they could just destroy them from a distance. The answer was simple. Captured ships meant captured technology, captured prisoners, and captured intelligence. Every alien ship that fell into human hands made humanity stronger. Warlord Vactus, commanding Altaran ground forces, watched the battle from his command ship and felt something he had never experienced before. "Fear." "Sir," his aide reported, "the humans have captured 12 of our vessels. They're using our own ships against us." 1 year after the first battle, the galaxy was on fire. Fleet Admiral Park Jin stood on the bridge of the Incheon, humanity's newest flagship, and watched the final battle preparations. Around her, the combined forces of the Human Liberation Alliance filled space as far as the eye could see. It was no longer just humans fighting for freedom. The Kandorian Mining Guild had joined them after centuries of exploitation. The Free Worlds Coalition had broken their treaties with the great powers. Even species from within the Altaran hegemony itself had rebelled against their own government. "Admiral," reported her communication officer, "Ambassador Choi Yoon sends word that the Zephyrian Trade Consortium has agreed to surrender their outer territories rather than fight." Park Jin nodded. The Zephyrians had learned quickly that fighting humans was bad for business. Better to negotiate while they still had something left to trade. And the Altarans? Emperor Zexkul refuses all peace offers. He's gathering every ship they have left for a final battle at Zentara Prime. Park Jin smiled grimly. Zentara Prime, the same station where humans had first been laughed at and dismissed. It seemed fitting that the war would end where it began. The past year had changed everything. What the aliens had called primitive human tactics had spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had fought according to ancient codes of honor for thousands of years suddenly discovered the power of deception, surprise attacks, and guerrilla warfare. Supreme General Yoon Seo had become the most feared military mind in the galaxy. Her doctrine of adaptive warfare was being studied by every species that wanted to survive in the new universe. The key is never to fight. "The same way twice," she explained to the alien officers who now served under human command. "When the enemy expects honor, you use deception. When they expect complex tactics, you use simple ones. When they expect you to follow their rules, you make your own rules." The architect Namho had planned the final campaign with the precision of a master chess player. Every move humanity had made for the past year had been leading to this moment. Emperor Zexkul has made the mistake of gathering his entire remaining fleet in one place, he explained to the assembled commanders. He thinks that overwhelming force will win the day just like it always has before. "How many ships does he have?" asked Captain Song Min, now commanding an entire battle group of captured alien vessels. 15,000 ships, Nam Ho replied. "The largest single fleet ever assembled. And we have 8,000 ships from 12 different species plus support vessels." The numbers didn't look good, but Park Jin had learned not to judge battles by numbers alone. Humans had been outnumbered in every major fight of the war, and they had won them all. The secret was that human technology had evolved faster in 1 year than alien technology had evolved in 1,000 years. Every captured ship, every piece of alien equipment, every prisoner who could be convinced to share knowledge had made humanity stronger. Engineer Baek Jun had become the galaxy's leading expert on hybrid technology. His workshops turned captured alien vessels into something new, ships that combined the best of human engineering with alien science. The aliens spent so long perfecting their individual technologies that they forgot about integration, he explained to his teams. A human computer controlling alien weapons powered by modified alien engines, protected by shields we've redesigned. The whole becomes greater than its parts. Dr. Lim Su had done something even more impressive. Her computer viruses had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen before. Artificial intelligences that could think like humans but process information like alien computers. "They're not just viruses anymore," she told the assembled scientists. "They're digital soldiers that can adapt and learn. Every alien system they encounter teaches them new ways to fight." The most important change, though, was political. Ambassador Choi Yoon had achieved what seemed impossible. She had united dozens of species under human leadership. "How did you do it?" asked a reporter from the Galactic News Network. Choi Yoon smiled. "We showed them something they had never seen before, a species that kept its promises. When we said we would free their people, we did it. When we said we would share our technology, we did it. When we said we would treat them as equals, we did it." The Kandorian Mining Guild was the first to join formally. Their leader, Foreman Keldan, had worked alongside human miners for years and seen their character firsthand. "Humans work harder than any species I know," he said. "But more importantly, they work together. They don't leave their people behind." The Free Worlds Coalition had joined after seeing human rescue operations. When alien forces attacked civilian populations, humans risked everything to save them, even aliens who had once oppressed them. "Humans fight like demons," said Coalition Admiral Torvash, "but they also protect like angels." Even former enemies were joining the human cause. Dr. Han Bi, now serving as humanity's chief intelligence officer, had convinced dozens of alien officers to defect. "We show them records of what their own governments have done," she explained. "Most aliens are decent people. When they learn the truth about how their leaders have been treating other species, they want no part of it." But Emperor Zexakul would never surrender. He was the last of the old-style galactic rulers, beings who believed that might made right, and that some species were naturally superior to others. The humans will be destroyed, he announced, to his remaining followers. They are an infection in the galactic order. At Zentara Prime, we will cut out this infection once and for all. The final battle began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Emperor Zexakul's fleet moved in perfect formation. 15,000 ships arranged in the classic Altaran battle array that had conquered dozens of species. They never learn, Admiral Park Jin said as she watched the alien formation on her screens. They're still fighting the last war. The human fleet, by contrast, looked chaotic. Ships from a dozen species mixed together with no apparent order. Some vessels hung back near asteroids, others spread out across impossible distances, and a few seemed to be heading in completely the wrong direction. Admiral, Emperor Zexakul broadcast on all frequencies. I offer you one final chance to surrender. Order your fleet to stand down and I will make your deaths quick. Park Jin opened her own communication channel. Her response was broadcast throughout the galaxy. Emperor Zexakul, she said, her voice calm and steady. You made a mistake 3 years ago when you decided that humans were too primitive to matter. You made another mistake when you tried to enslave us. Your final mistake is thinking that we fight like you do. She paused, looking directly at the camera. Humans don't fight for conquest or glory. We fight for each other. And today that includes every species that chooses freedom over oppression. The battle began with Emperor Zexakul's ships firing massive plasma volleys at the human formation. But the humans weren't where they appeared to be. The chaotic formation was actually a carefully planned deception. Most of the ships the aliens were targeting were holographic projections. The real human fleet struck from 3 directions at once. Captain Song Min's Ghost Squadron hit the alien rearguard using captured Altaran ships. Commander Li Yang led stealth fighters in attacks on the alien command vessels. And Admiral Park Jin's main fleet struck at the center of the alien formation, with weapons the Emperor had never seen before. The new weapons were the product of a year of human innovation. They combined alien energy technology with human kinetic systems to create something entirely new, plasma-charged projectiles that could punch through any known shield, guided by AI systems that learned from every shot. Impossible. Emperor Zexakul screamed as his ships began taking catastrophic damage. Our shield should stop any projectile weapon. Not when the projectiles are made of plasma held in magnetic containment fields, Engineer Baek Jun explained to his team as they watched the battle. They hit like kinetic weapons but burn like energy weapons. But the real devastation came from Dr. Lim Su's digital soldiers.
The AI viruses had evolved far beyond their original programming.
They didn't just shut down alien systems, they took control of them. Across the Altaran fleet, ships began turning their weapons on each other. Navigation systems guided vessels into collisions. Life support systems flooded command decks with sleeping gas. Sir, Emperor Zexakul's tactical officer shouted, our ships are attacking each other. Something has taken control of our fleet. Then we fight manually. The Emperor roared. Disconnect all computer systems. Fight like our ancestors did, but aliens had become so dependent on their technology that they barely remembered how to fight without it. Human forces trained to adapt and improvise pressed their advantage ruthlessly. The turning point came when the architect Nam Ho revealed his master stroke. The human ships that had seemed to be retreating weren't running away. They were getting into position for the largest boarding operation in galactic history. Thousands of human Marines, trained in zero-gravity combat and armed with hybrid weapons, began capturing alien ships faster than the Empire could respond. Each captured vessel immediately turned its weapons on its former allies. Supreme General Yun Seo led the boarding of Emperor Zexakul's flagship personally. She had studied the ship's design for months and knew exactly where to strike.